I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast. Main reason is, have you ever gotten to the end of your day, sat down, looked at what you did, and realized that you haven't done a fucking thing? It is one of the problems in recruiting is we're constantly running around like firefighters. We're constantly putting out fires, but so often we're not in control of our day. And because we're not in control of our day, we are not getting the things done that it takes to make the placements and takes to get the money. And so not having control of your day impacts your income and your family's income. That's why I'm excited about my guest today, Brad Wolff. We're going to talk about productivity when it comes to recruiting. We're going to talk about the secrets of being able to stay on track so that way you can make more placements. So excited, Brad, to have you to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Benjamin. Really honored to be a guest on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So before we do a deep dive on making yourself the most productive recruiter you could be, how the hell did you even end up in the wonderful world of recruiting?
So actually, I started off as an accountant. I became a CPA, believe it or not. That was a lousy accountant.
Total end of the spectrum, like people and numbers.
It's life is what happens in life is often more interesting than a movie a fictional movie. So then I went into selling insurance and investments, and I did that for about 5.5 years. And then I really was kind of like, I don't want to sell insurance. I like being in sales, etc. And this was back in 92 that I was kind of at a crossroads and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew they wanted me to accountant, but I didn't want to sell insurance. And back when 92, when you're looking for a job, it was the classified job ads that came out on Sunday. It was in the AJC's Editorial Constitution. And I saw an ad, and literally it said, looking for a CPA with a sales background. I mean, it's kind of a ridiculous advertisement. So I was like,
straight to the point.
I mean, there's probably one applicant that is qualified and, or few in the whole, regional areas. So I applied, interviewed, and got the job. Not too surprised. So that's how I got into recruiting, and just took off from there. And I started out placing accounting and financial people. I was the other piece where why they wanted someone that had an account.
I mean, at least like you knew the industry, and that's kind of crazy. Like, job ad, looking for an accountant with a sales background. Boom, there you go. Welcome to recruiting. And it's been looking at your background on LinkedIn and the discussion that we've had, you've had an incredible journey. Talk about that.
So the first 10 years, I worked for 2 large national recruiting firms where, quite frankly, I got great training and worked with some terrific people. So it really was a great breeding ground for me to succeed. And I did really well, and I loved it, making a lot of money. This is pre-internet, all the stuff that we do now. And it was a different world. I loved it, thrived. And then in 2001, we hit the .com internet bubble recession. And I realized that was a good time to start my own firm because I wasn't walking away from a lot. I was making very good money, and it was harder to walk away than. So when things went south, it was much easier. So I became a co-founder in a firm, started off placing accounting financial people because the firm I was at was placing IT professionals, both contract and direct hire. So did that, and we built the firm for 7 years, and then long ago, I get all the details. We started a new firm with a different model. And quite frankly, in 2017, I realized, I'm not excited. It's become repetitive for me. Mm-hmm. After 25 years and 15 years in being an owner of Conjure and having a team, there was a lot of same things over and over. And I realized that what I really was juiced up about was training, development, coming up with processes and tools and solutions, all of those things, and not the day-to-day running recruiting business, which became repetitive. So I earned my coaching certification and decided to become a coach and advisor. It was like, okay, you know, I'm getting to a point in my life, it's kind of like my last career. And I wanted to do something different that I was excited about. So I launched, and I realized my audience very clearly were, founders of small and mid-sized recruiting firms, because I sat in their seat, walked in their shoes, dealt with the same issues they deal with. And it was a natural fit. And then that's what I've been doing since 2018.
And that is like one of the things that you sometimes see with like sometimes coaches is you see the coaches that have learned the industry, and then you see the coaches that have done something for 25 years, know the ups and downs, have sat in the seat and are like, here's the roadmap that I used.
Absolutely. So it's been a great fit. I love what I do. I really enjoy working very closely with founders, and I'll work with their teams too. I'll do training with the teams on topics. Some of my clients have me train, work with the team on productivity issues. And what's happened that caused me to really put a major focus on productivity? A few things. Number one, saw again and again where people knew what to do, they weren't putting in action when I execute. Number two, I looked in the mirror and realized the host of productivity problems I had were distractibility, shiny objects, uh, emotional ups and downs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I really took an honest look at my life. And then about 10 years ago, realized, man, productivity is a real problem for me. It's, when I really get in a role and I'm focused on something, I can do great, but I get off target, all these things that we talk about. So I really became somewhat obsessed. I'm going to use the word obsessed instead of something. And I really did a tremendous amount of research, took courses, psychology, brain science, really getting to the heart of what allows people to be effective and execute versus not so effective and not executing. I mean, it wasn't how smart people were. It wasn't their knowledge or skills often. It was the ability to stay focused and follow through on what matters most. So, with about 10 years of research, training, working with clients, I realized that this is a missing piece in the industry. And most people just don't directly talk about it. They'll talk about little specific issues. I have a hard time staying on track. I'm overwhelmed. I'm just not, on and on and on. I just can't seem to follow through. I got off on a tangent, all these things, but they don't put it together and say these are all part of one big puzzle that you can group into a classification called productivity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what made me excited about this, is this really is a missing piece that few people are talking about, and it isn't solved with the traditional methods. Well, if you had a good to-do list, you planned your day. Well, if you simply just blocked out time. Well, if you used the tools and technology more effectively. That wasn't solving the issues. I don't see people solving the issues with that for a number of reasons. So I realize it's a much bigger puzzle than what most people think it is.
And it's kind of like looking back on my recruiting career, and I started in the mid 2000s, and there wasn't the massive amount of distractions. Like I'd hop on LinkedIn, but it wasn't a tool that I would use all the time. I spent most of my day just running through my call list, banging out phone calls, banging out emails, way before email sequences. But then you look at today, and you have to write a good story on LinkedIn. So you spend time doing that, and then you spend time getting stuck in somebody else's stories. And then you got to post an Instagram or TikTok, and 45 minutes later, you're still on TikTok. This little Podomo timer saves you half the time. Your to-do lists, I think that the problem is, and I'm excited about you talking about this on the podcast, is we live in a different world. We live in a world that's full of noise, and that noise at the end of the day, there's a lot of recruiters that are probably looking up and can actually measure out only an hour or two of productivity out of an 8 or 10 hour day. So let's talk about Like, first of all, how do you recognize that you're being distracted before we start talking about how to fix that?
Well, I think there's a few clues, and to a great extent, people realize they're being distracted, but that just becomes a habit, and they don't think they don't. It doesn't draw a lot of attention. You're jumping from task to task, and you're not staying focused on one thing. That's a sign of distraction. You're always chasing something that's in your face. So the recruiting industry productivity is more difficult than most industries because most industries don't have the constant level of interruptions, constant change of direction, constant ups and downs with things blowing up despite everybody doing everything right. So that's why it is so important to design a course and training around the specific issues related to recruiting that are difficult so that recruiters can address the challenges to their productivity rather than something generic. But I got off on a tangent. We're talking about distractibility. I wanted to give you a good example of distractibility so you knew that it was, you could point at it and identify. So you're not staying focused on one thing at a time, and you're constantly moving around, and you're allowing yourself to be interrupted, and you're open to invitations, interruptions. Those are some clues. And I don't find many recruiters that don't have a problem.
It's like the occasion. I think the only people that I've seen that haven't had a huge distraction issue are some of the top billers that have really figured out how to like block out everything.
You know what, Benjamin? That's one of the things I learned. Is also I took a look at what is it about people that are consistently the most productive recruiters, and what are they doing? And there's some common threads. Certainly, there's individual differences, but there's also common threads. And what you just said is one of the common threads. But here's the catch: there's personality characteristics that make it a lot easier for some people just to block out time to not distractions. That most people, that's not how they're wired, so they've got to come up with other ways to deal with it. For example, like I'll still use the example. I remember back when I was selling insurance, one of the trainings we did up is on productivity and blocking out your day. And the training was, someone plan out their day in detail on their calendar. From this time to this time they did this, and from this time to that time they did that, etc. And I tried that. There's no effing way I was going to do that. That was just so extreme for me. And I'd be like, even if I was productive, I'd be so pissed off all the time.
I mean, talk about one of my favorite things I've seen at other industries where they're like, well, just like turn your email off until like after lunch. And I'm like, but we're recruiters. Like we live on our phone and email all day long. Like just what if I miss something?
Well, we can address that when you're ready, because that, when I said productivity in the recruiting industry is more difficult than, almost scary feel back to think of. What you just said is one of the multiple reasons. And it's an addiction to constant news and constant updates.
Okay. So we're right there. Like, let's talk about that then. Like, what are let's focus on that. What are the
so we know there's brain science involved, and then I'll talk about also this. The thing is, we all have myths that we buy into. And one of the biggest myths in the recruiting industry is you've got to always be accessible. You never know when a client or a candidate or a coworker or this and that needs you. Okay? So we really believe that. But here's the thing. If I'm your candidate and you're interviewing me for a job, are you taking phone calls?
Okay. Point taken.
Are you checking your email and text?
Point taken.
Okay. So you're not when you're interviewing. Why is that?
Because you're busy.
Because it's the priority, and it would take you off target, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you just told me that it isn't true that you can't put aside time where you're not distracted. You just, if someone's in business development, if they're on a time visit or a client call, are they taking other calls and emails and texts?
No.
If the answer is no, then it's bullshit. It's total bullshit, but we buy into it because it seems intuitively correct. But it's bullshit. That doesn't mean that you should never be accessible. When you call a busy professional, let's say you call your doctor, do you expect them to answer the phone?
Oh, they almost never answer the phone.
Do you expect them to return your email in 5 minutes?
Not within 5 minutes.
Okay. Do you really think that your candidates and clients and coworkers need you and expect you to have nothing else going on that you just answer and right away?
Most of the time. Yeah. No, point taken.
So it's an addiction that they have, and it's the same chemical addiction that social media plays on. We're always looking for that next quick hit of dopamine because it causes us to be, oh, great. And they play on that. It's the same thing. It's an addictive quality where we want the next hit of dopamine. And once we're addicted, we're always checking the phone and checking our email and this. And we feel like we have to, we're just fierce. It's not true.
So how do you change that?
So, first of all, that's a great question. I don't have a quick fix answer for any one thing because I don't think the major challenges in life are race with one quick fix. Number one, you acknowledge that it's bullshit. That it's a story we tell ourselves. That's number one. Number two is we don't expect perfection. So if you say, but I'm going to block out these hours of time and I'm going to turn my phone off and I'm not going to check my email and I'm not going to fill my social media and all that. If you expect perfection, then as soon as you fall off the wagon, which you will, you're going to say, what's the point? I can't do it. So you just say, I'm constantly looking to improve and minimize the distractions. So not totally eliminate. It's not all or nothing. Number three, you have realistic lots of time. Let's say an hour where you have priority time and you really need to focus and not be distracted. You tell people on your team, look, Benjamin, in order to make sure that I can get things done that we need to, I'm going to have blocks of time where I'm not interrupted. And I'll just let you know so you realize I'm not. Everyone on their team, quite frankly, that's one of the best things leaders can do is they set the tone that this is what you do here so you get work. Okay? And you treat it like an interview or a client visit or whatever else. And you put your phone on the ND or turn it off. Now someone says, well, what if it's an emergency? My wife calls. Okay. You can program your ND so it only accepts calls from certain people. I'm expecting a client, but the client doesn't expect you to answer the phone right then. Or the candidate. So you can just program that I will allow these calls. You turn off your email notifications. If you're on the internet, you're only staying on the Skype iPhone very off. And you just say, I'm going to stay focused and calm and take my time because you need, 10 minutes or so to get into the groove. When you start doing that, you don't just immediately shift into focus. You move into focus with some time. And you relax. Maybe you play some calming music without words, without lyrics. But you just say, this is quiet, calm, productive time. And you start actually liking it when you do it because it's actually enjoyable. You slow down. That's another topic we can cover is this whole myth about you go faster. You want to get. That's another bullshit myth that we tended to buy.
I mean, if you like talking about doing things faster, I actually have done this a few times. I used a website called Toggle, and I spent like a week or 2 weeks at a time. And I do this a few times a year where I literally track everything I'm doing, like on a time basis, and calculate it out. And one of the things that every time I do that, it really just makes me think, like, look at like how many times I switch a task, how many times I am multitasking, and that Toggle actually made me monotask a lot more.
Benjamin, that's a fantastic idea, is to take an inventory. And here's the thing. Here's what I think is key for the listeners to realize. You don't beat yourself up because you're imperfect. Because that's another way to keep us off track. Because we say, oh, I can't do this. I'm so horrible at this. Oh, I'm so disappointed in myself. And all the things we tell ourselves. Because studies of psychology have clearly shown that actually lowers your effectiveness, lowers your confidence. Because then what it does is it gives you an excuse to let yourself off the hook and stop trying. It's another bullshit thing. You see, when you do something you feel bad about, the easiest thing to do is to punish yourself by feeling bad, because then that avoids you from taking action to correct it. So we actually delude ourselves into thinking feeling bad is a substitute for action, and it's not. So feeling bad is the worst thing. Don't be so. I'm human. I do all these things. I just set things up so I do a lot less of it and feel a lot better about myself. But I said, hey, that's what happens. Just get back on focus. I took this call when I said I wouldn't. Okay, fine. Okay, let's just get back. Very calm. Okay, back. Let's just get back. No problem. Back on the wagon, fall off. Get back on the wagon, fall off. Get back on the wagon, and you can laugh about it. Don't take yourself too seriously with this. That's the fun.
So is there any other issues that you see that, before we go farther, that you see as recruiting is different compared to other places that makes it so difficult?
Okay, we talked about the constant distraction. I think we beat that one pretty clearly. Okay. I'm not going to feel bad about beating it. So we get back on the wagon. So the another one is constant changes and shifts of direction. You're doing everything you can to get everything set up for a place, for the job. And then shit happens, which is a goal. And all of a sudden, changing direction. Oh, the hiring manager's not going to hire, or they promote stuff. Oh, the candidate took another job or changed her mind. On and on and on. So everything you're doing and you're working on and you're focused, and then like that, and then instead, take it in, irrelevant, move on. Okay? The constant shifts in directions are a major distraction. And it's the emotional impact also. Quite frankly, when things blow up despite our best efforts, it's a punch in the gut. How do you feel when that happens? You did everything right and look like a deal, and then boom. Tell me how you feel.
Oh, it sucks. And it really sometimes depends on the week, the month, where you're at, and how big the deal is. You're just like, well, shit. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, even though it's 10 o'clock now. I'm like, you know what? It's time for wine or whiskey.
I mean, let's be real. So that's another one, is the emotional ups and downs things. So I've seen people lose weeks of productivity when it really disappointing event. And here's the thing. Disappointing events happens in clusters. That's how statistics work. So that's where the word cluster F comes around. Because you got clusters. And you're like, oh no. And then the next thing happens. And here's the thing. It's the emotional ups and downs is another productivity killer. So learning, because it's specific techniques on how to deal with emotional ups and downs without it throwing you in a ditch and taking you off target. So that's another difference in the recruiting industry. There's just more of these things because you're dealing with the only product out there that has an opinion that can change its mind. Think about sales and every other field. What you're selling doesn't do shit. It does what you tell it to do.
At the end of the day, yeah.
So that's another big piece that a lot of people don't want to talk about, is the emotional up and down piece that weigh people down to just take them out of focus and energy that they need to be productive.
So how does one strengthen that emotional resilience?
There's a number of steps. One of them is to realize this is just part of the game. It's not just picking on you. It's not some personal thing. It's just part of the game. It's a statistics game. That's part of it. Also, and there's a number of things. I'll just hit on a few key ones. Is to allow yourself to blow off steam. Okay? A lot of people don't know how to do that at all. When I say blowing off steam, if something's really upsetting to you, and you're just kind of like, okay, no, and just holding it in, not really allowing yourself to deal with it, then all that negative energy is just stuck inside and it has nowhere to go. So blowing off steam, allow yourself 5 minutes. And if you go somewhere where you can shout, expletives. I made up all kinds of bad words. I mean, stuff that I didn't know what it means, that it sounds really bad. Okay, but the thing is not to have it as something that causes negative interaction with other people. Okay, so I allow myself to and just say whatever. I need that into something to just say if you're my coworker or business partner, I'm saying, Benjamin, you got 5 minutes that I can bet. And what I'm going to say has nothing to do with you. I just want to talk about with you. And I'm not mad at you. So when you see me all mad, you have nothing to do with this. And express what's going on and share what's going on with the strong emotion because I'm really upset. And you just realize that, hey, I get it. Yeah, that does suck. So that venting piece can really help. And you may need to vent a few times. But just never vent for more than 3 to 5 minutes at a time. Because when you go beyond that, you're not venting, you're just obsessing. And obsessing is one of the problems, and you just keep thinking about the same thing. So there's a number of things that I teach my clients. But you can't just ignore and dismiss away these upsets because you actually make them bigger when you resist or can. That's psychological proof.
Ooh, because that's what I've seen over the years. Myself, I've seen other people like really get sometimes derailed, and it's hard getting yourself back on the rails. So, kind of jumping the gun a little bit. I want to talk about procrastination. It's a thing a lot of recruiters deal with, even though they don't think they're dealing with it, but they deal with it. How do I, as a recruiter, stop procrastinating?
Yeah, can we talk about that another time? I couldn't resist that. So we all deal with procrastination at some point. And it's a bit misunderstood. It's often a lot of misunderstood, Benjamin. You see, we tell ourselves often procrastination is laziness. It's not. No, it's not laziness. What it is it's the natural avoidance of something that we are concerned about in the life. It's avoidance of emotional discomfort. And as human beings, we always have avoid emotional discomfort. And then we start building it into something bigger. So to realize, number one, I just don't want to do this because there's something I'm concerned about. So that's step one. Step two, you want to address what it is that's concerning you. So you can really look at it objectively and realize that, hey, it's going to cause more emotional upset and effort to avoid it than it is to do it. And let's figure out what I could do to start taking some action to doing it. Because it's letting you realize that you blew this up into something bigger than it really is and addressing what it is. Hey, someone said, pick up the phone and call 20 people that you don't know. Well, most people want to avoid it. Well, let's look at why I want to avoid this. Okay? And maybe I want to avoid it for a good reason, because sometimes the procrastination is legitimate. So if my boss says, when a candidate takes a counteroffer, call him up and tell him, I'm never going to work with you again, and we're going to make sure that everyone knows it. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And they're just saying, I do that. Well, maybe it's a good idea that you don't do that. Because they're not going to take your job anyway. All you're going to do now is create a negative vibe and bad reputation for your firm, you.
I feel like they used to work.
Really look at why are you procrastinating, and is it really a big legitimate deal, or is it something else? But you've got to look at it and realize it for what it is, which is really avoidance. But there's steps that you can do, very specific, and those are still so that procrastination doesn't become this big monster that's a habit every time you don't feel.
Well, it jumps into another question. So, spend the morning planned out. I know what I'm going to do today. I know the jobs I'm going to target. I know the people I'm going to try to go after. Like, I am ready to rock and roll for the day. And by the time I get done, and this is a story between me and many other people out there, we hit like 3 p.m. And I look down at my list. I look down at what I've done. I'm like, I felt like I started the day right. But how does a day keep on getting away from me? How do all these things keep on getting away from me?
You know what? I think so. That is so common. And some of it has to do with the way you plan your day. Some of it has to do with my brain chemistry. So I can address some of these things.
Okay.
So the recruiting industry was what we talked about, the challenge of the recruiting industry. Your day will get away from you if you're not intentional about taking control of your day. It's just starting, right? So, number one, you want a very small to-do list. Psychological studies on the brain work has shown no more than 4 to 6 items. You see, when you got a big to-do list, it's a constant distraction because you're always, whether you're conscious of it or not, are thinking about all that shit that you're never going to get to. Like, oh my God, even if I get this and this done, it's not even going to matter. All right? That's one problem with the big to-do list. And it leads to feeling overwhelmed, and it leads to disappointment. So you start getting out, you start getting later in the day and you realize I done very little on my to-do list. What's the point? It's a loss they made tomorrow. Okay, so starting with a big to-do list automatically puts you in a likely to lose situation. Small to-do list I love, I can't believe I can prioritize it. You also want to prioritize it based on importance, not just urgency. So those are two different things, but urgent and easy tends to get the attention above what matters most, which is ultimately it's about submitting quality candidates that you can get interviews for. That's what this business is based on. I know I did too much into the fundamentals of this one I'm talking about. Another element is to realize that our mind is freshest in the morning. For biochemistry reasons, the human brain functions on what are called neurotransmitters. These are chemicals that cause the level brain function. In the morning, we have a higher amount of neural count. So as we go through the day, we're using them up, and we restore them when we sleep, assuming you sleep well. So if you're using them up during the day, the more difficult tasks will be done early in the day, and you have a larger reserve of neurotransmitters. What I might often refer to as cognitive fluidness. So when you try to do difficult tasks later in the day and your mind is working well, then you just get more frustrated. And you don't do stuff you can try and taste well. Okay. And then there's things you can do, you can go on and on, to conserve your cognitive fuel and mental energy so you're not wasting on things that could have been used for more productive purposes.
Okay. So the big takeaway is, I need to cut down my to-do list probably. Try to knock things out first thing in the morning, or when I have like the most mental energy, because
The more difficult tasks.
The more difficult
tasks. The biggest problem with productivity is the most productive tasks, so they're usually the most difficult ones that take the most effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to do them early when you're fresher, you have more cognitive fuel.
Oh, that is great.
And the overwhelm, okay. See, as soon as you feel overwhelmed, your mind was in a stress state. That stress state shuts off the ability to think rationally. So that's another problem that we're dealing with the big to-do list. Getting caught up in problems. As soon as overwhelm hits, you're done. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can't get shit done.
Oh, awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we jump to the next section when it comes to productivity with recruiting?
I'll let you lead because Rico does such a good job.
Well, I know that you actually have a 15 recruiting productivity hacks that if you want to check it out, it's going to be in the show notes. So definitely check that out. Click the link. Can you give us like one or two of those hacks as like kind of a little bit of a teaser?
So what we just talked about one, which is to start with to do this. We talked about a few of them, but there's 15 of them. I want to keep some in reserve. so that people are excited when they see it. But it's some very practical tactics that people can put into action quickly and get the productivity improved. It's productivity. There's more involved in productivity than just a hack here and it's a tactic there. but it really gets things moving in the right direction where people can quickly make some improvements that can get them going in the right direction and improve the productivity.
Awesome.
So that's the thing is people will often think, oh, if I just did this, and one of the common things, if I just had a better planner, or I just had better to-do list, or I had better tools and technology. And tools and technology will not solve productivity problems, ever.
I almost want to say that sometimes tools and technology like makes it worse.
When I started off in recruiting and we had no tools and technology, we were manual, I was able to focus so much more. I'm telling you, it was so much easier to focus. As we added tools and technology, it became more and more difficult for me to focus. We had more and more things to do, more and more things to learn, more and more things to troubleshoot. Tools and technology, on one hand, are an important blessing that you need. On the other hand, they will not solve your productivity problems. They will create other ones. And they don't self-execute. No one's showing you a tool that self-executes and does it for you.
Yeah, you can easily get the shiny object syndrome when it comes to tools in our space. Hey, this is going to solve this. This is going to solve that. Next thing you know, you're $500 a month on another tool, and you're like, do I even need this?
It's the shiny object syndrome is so common, and the answer isn't to be manual and just don't embrace technology either. That's kind of real.
Well, any last words of advice for productivity when it comes to recruiting before we jump over to the quick fire questions?
I don't have anything specific that comes to mind.
Okay, cool. So let's jump into the quick fire questions. So you've been a recruiter, you've trained recruiters, you've trained agency owners. So I love this asking you this question. What advice would you give to somebody that's just getting started in the recruiting industry in 2024?
So, first of all, being a productive recruiter, you need to have the skills and the knowledge of recruiting. You can't be a productive recruiter if you don't have the skills and knowledge. So you really need to learn high quality skills in what you're doing and have at least adequate technology to perform your task. So that's number one. You can't put productivity your way out of knowledge and skills. The productivity piece has to do with implementing, executing the knowledge and skills. But you need this knowledge and skill. I mean, that comes first.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, what about this? Like when you're coming to experienced recruiters, people that you've talked about 5, 10, 15, 2 decades in, almost 2 decades like myself. Crazy. What advice would you give to those recruiters to see success or stay successful?
With respect to productivity?
Either way, productivity
Okay.
or non-productivity.
Well, I would say if you really experience the problem that I see frequently is the things that used to work we want to hold on to. And what happens is our environment changes fast, and it seems to change at a faster rate as time goes on. So the people with a lot of experience have usually not adapted as fast as the environment's changed. So they've fallen behind in terms of processes, tools, and solutions that are important to be successful now instead of successful back years ago. And they need to renew, reinvigorate, regenerate to be able to get back in the game and be highly competitive. And today, well, that's number one thing that I see in people that have been very successful over the years.
Awesome. Do you have like a favorite book that's had a huge impact on your career?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many. One of them that I think of because it hits productivity is called Atomic Habits. And that's one thing I didn't hit on as much. Maybe I should have, Benjamin, is at the end of the day, the key is to make things habits. Because if they're not a habit, you've got to exert willpower and force is enough to stay. So you've got to develop little habits / routines that you regularly, repetitively fire off that are helpful to you. And as you develop these habits, it becomes more automatic and less difficult. Because the habit of distractibility is the problem. So you need to develop a habit of non-distractibility. So at the end of the day, until you incorporate things into habits, they're not sustainable, ongoing efforts that we implement.
I love that Atomic Habits is the book, because that's actually we're recording right now in January. It's going to go live later on, but that's the book of the month for the elite recruiter community is Atomic Habits. So we're all reading that right now. We're actually getting together to talk about that at the end of the month. So, and my God, that is, now I know why it has so many reviews on Audible and Amazon. It is a game changer of a book. So great recommendation, Brad.
Absolutely.
Well, how about this? What's your thoughts on artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact recruiting?
Boy, that one you can talk forever. First of all, I'm going to give a disclaimer. I have no faith that I can predict the future. The thing is, I don't have faith other people can either. It all never works out quite how this thing, okay? My sense though that of it is, and it's based on, being like some multiple years with new and technologies coming out, is in this, whether you're talking about the internet, you're talking about social media, you're talking about software and automation, and this is this big rush that, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. And, I remember when online job orders were going to put recruiters out of business. I remember when because I was going to lead to internal recruiting staff that fill all the jobs without the recruiter. But I remember so many new things that come up. Computers were supposed to create mass unemployment years ago. So, and there's this big overemphasis, over enthusiasm about this new thing that's going to change it. And at the end of the day, it's overhyped. It's going to change things, but not as fast or quite in the way that we think. It never does. It's not an issue. But here's the thing in the recruiting industry. Ultimately, I don't care what technology you have. There's judgment and relationships. You're not going to replace judgment and relationships. And the relationship part, the skill in being able to truly connect and relate with another human being, then you can have influence that moves things forward, gives you competitive edge. It's not AI the way it is. Now, we'll have avatars and we'll be able to plug in the right connection personality for that target audience someday down the road. It's not going to be in the next year or two. Pretty much give you that assurance. So that's awesome. As Forrest Gump would say, that's about all I got to say about AI.
Do you have a favorite? I normally say recruiting tech tool, but I'm going to make it productivity. Do you have a favorite productivity tool that you love?
No, because I don't think it works. It's not so much tools. It's ways of approaching. It's mindsets and beliefs. It's habits. It's ways of approaching things. That's part of the problem with productivity is people are looking for some magic tool. So, yeah. And I'm going to say that's the problem is you're looking for something that is not going to do it. It starts with how your beliefs, your mindsets and beliefs set the pattern. And we have mindsets and beliefs that are built on foundations of this and stuff that maybe was true in the past but isn't now. So, no tool is for new in mind.
So no tool in working on the
ChatGPT. Okay, I'm going to confess. ChatGPT. If you just use ChatGPT, you forget about it. You're
yeah, awesome. Oh, man, I have way too much fun with ChatGPT.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a lot of fun. That's layers of stuff. Like let's for another episode.
Sounds good. What do you think has been a huge part of your own personal success?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing is that I always want to learn and improve. So no matter what happens, how can I get better? I reflect constantly. What did I do here? What did I do that didn't work? What can I do differently now? I'm always looking at problem solve, prevent problems. I'm big on problem prevention. So it's constantly always trying to learn and improve and prevent Because whenever something didn't go right, well, what could I have done differently? What will I do differently next time? So I'm always looking to improve and develop new tools and processes and solutions to problems that occur in the industry. So I think that's one of the biggest things. Um, I never give up wanting to get better, to learn more, and to improve.
That's awesome. And it's one thing I love about the Atomic Habits book that we're reading in the book club is it really talks about processes and systems. And like you just said, it's a big thing with a lot of top billers. Whether they know it or not, they've built out these systems and processes that they just live their life with.
And what do you call a system or process that you regularly do? There's a
A
word for it.
habit.
You know what? Give me your address. I'm going to send you a check. When we get offline, I'm going to send you an autographed copy of the Atomic Habits. How's that? I'll autograph it for you.
Perfect. And here's actually, this is actually my favorite question, and this is how we typically wrap up the podcast. If you can, everything that you know now, everything that you've experienced with, the ups and downs of your career, the wins, the losses, if you could sit down with yourself and have a cup of coffee with young Brad, what would you tell yourself?
First thing I would say is, hold your head out of your butt, young man. I would start with that because I think get buried up there where we start buying our own press and thinking that we're so smart and we got the solutions and whatever we've learned is going to work and it'll keep working. So that's a lot of it. That's number one, is to don't buy into that. And I refer to that generically as, having my head up. And that I think is that simple. And
Why is that? Like, why that advice?
because I think that the world is so fluid and dynamic, and that you never really, well, even if you have the answer to something now, it's going to change. Whatever you're doing that works now will not continue to work in the same way in the future.
Okay.
So stop buying into that you have this magic solution. Oh, and if I know how to use AI, and I know how to do it, if I only had this tool or that tool, I bought into that for years, that there's this magic solution that or once I learn how to do this well, I'm golden. Well, whatever you do, I see that all the time. LinkedIn came out. People started using LinkedIn and this and that, using automation, this and that. And then, everyone's using it. And then it becomes a bigger problem where you're just another commodity out there that's bothered. I remember back in the early 2000s that we could send, in our company, a mass email to collect prospects that you didn't even know. And I would get a lot of new job orders because they would email back, oh my God, yeah, can you help us with this? I mean, do that now and tell me how it works, okay? So whatever works will not keep working. You better adapt. It's all about being able to learn and adapt quickly and then keep adapting because whatever you do won't work. So that's what I mean about the head of the what, is to think that the world works, that whatever you can have some tool or solution and it's going to keep working. It's more about learning and adapting quickly, as opposed to then you have something that's going to work. And if it keeps working, the biggest problem is you want to keep doing it and never give up doing it. Because, well, it still works, what? And then we'll just come up with all these explanations on why it doesn't work. And the reality is, no, it doesn't work. The market's changed. These people are tired of this bullshit, and they don't respond anymore.
I'm just imagining a world where you could send out a mass email and I get tons of job orders. And nowadays, like, I have friends that are hiring managers, and they're like, I think one of them a few weeks ago was like, I think it was like 170 messages so far this month for recruiting services. So,
That's what I used to work. That part I said, young man, get your head out of me, but is because I had a false model of the world that you can have a solution and then write a solution. I mean, if it's good every field, the medical field, whatever, it always takes whatever advice they say you need to do this, this, and this. Down the road, they say, well, we learned that we were wrong. You need to take this supplement. Now asking to have adverse. And it's inevitable. Don't buy in that you've got the solution that you can just take to the bank and keep on printing money. It just doesn't work that way.
I love that.
Now,
Well, Brad,
the fundamentals tend to be stable. But the strategies and tactics to execute the fundamentals are constantly changing. Because your audience keeps adapting, and they don't respond the same way these days that they did.
That is so true. Well, Brad, for the listeners, if they want to connect with you or follow you, how do they do that?
Okay. You can connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
My name is Brad, WOLFF. Just like the big Brad Wolff. And you want to give my email address?
Yeah, I'll have your LinkedIn in the show notes.
That's email or LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And
Don't call me because I blocked out time and I'm not answering my phone.
Well, there we go. There's a tip before we end. Well, Brad, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
Really, that I love this recruiting community. I know how challenging it is, how much things change, and how much more difficult it is than most people from the outside think. And I have a tremendous amount of understanding and empathy for how difficult it is to really be productive and not kill yourself with the grind and the hours and the stress. So the good news is there are solutions that can really make a big difference, that you can produce a lot more, work less, and not be stressed out and overwhelmed.
Ooh, that is the recruiting dream. Making more, stressing less, and working less. There we go. Well,
Hey,
for the
no, I can put that in a tool that I can sell. But if Chatty, look what I'm in ChatGPT, you'll have your answer. How do I
There we go.
ask this question? I'll give you the answer.
No, but Brad, I'm excited that you came onto the podcast. Like I said, when we started off, one of the biggest things that I've seen with my journey in recruiting and other people's journey in recruiting is just so often you get to the end of the day and you're just like, what did I get done? Wait, where have we gone? Who have I gotten hold of? It's just like days can easily turn chaotic, and chaotic days means you're producing less.
The natural order of everything in life is what's called entropy, which is to move to a degree of greater disorder and chaos. A garden will naturally not lead you on the planet. We will naturally get off track, go off on tangents, get distracted, do the things that are easy and fun rather than things that are harder and more productive. So the reality is that we will naturally move in a direction that doesn't support our success until we develop the success habits that we look for.
Yeah, so true. Well, Brad, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For the listeners, let's make this your best year yet. And let's also make this your most productive year yet. So let's crush it, guys.